Now to the war in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has sharply criticised the human rights organisation Amnesty International. Zelenskyy has accused it of victim blaming after Amnesty alleged Ukrainian troops had endangered civilians while fighting Russian soldiers. On the ground in Ukraine, there is reported to be heavy fighting in the south, close to the Russian-held city of Kherson. And in the eastern Donetsk region, Ukrainian civilians have fled their homes, forced to leave by incessant Russian shelling.
A train station in Donetsk, evacuating the old and the young, all exhausted, westwards. Ordinary Ukrainians caught up in fierce fighting and forced to leave their homes with whatever they can carry. We are from a village near Lysychansk. It's between the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. Our village has been ruined. There's no gas, no water, no electricity. We were sitting in the basement for a month. The army brought us here. The government has ordered civilians to leave combat zones in Donetsk. But the danger may not be just from Russian attacks. Amnesty International accuses Ukraine of basing troops in populated areas, putting civilians at risk and violating the laws of war. Kyiv was furious.
If someone prepares a report in which the victim and the aggressor are allegedly the same in some way, if information about the victim is analysed while something the aggressor does is ignored, this cannot be tolerated.
Ukrainian soldiers face a grinding battle to keep the remaining regions of eastern Donbass out of Russian control and to avoid shelling.
We sit in the trenches. The enemy shells us and we can't even stick our heads out. Now there are no small arms fights as there used to be. Today it is an artillery battle. You just jump into the trench and wait for the strike.
Away from the front lines, the evacuation of civilians from Donetsk continues. The question is whether that will be enough to keep them safe.
3 more ships carrying grain are set to leave Ukrainian ports today. The first of them, a bulk carrier transporting 12,000 tonnes of corn, set sail for Turkey this morning. 2 more commercial vessels destined for ports in Ireland and Britain have also been authorised to leave Ukraine. As part of the grain deal signed by Kyiv and Moscow, the ships will be inspected in Istanbul before continuing on to their final destinations. Well, for more on this, let's bring in DW's Russia analyst, Konstantin Eggert. Konstantin, great to see you. So, Turkey's President Erdogan played an important role in the grain deal, and later today he'll be meeting Russian President Putin in Sochi on the Black Sea. So, is this another attempt by Erdogan to mediate in the Ukraine war?
Well, it's true that Erdogan is pretty much the only NATO head of state, at least, who maintains relations with Putin and speaking terms with him. But I don't think we have to put some kind of mega meaning into every single meeting they have. They have a lot to discuss on a kind of running basis. The Bayraktar drones production in Turkey, which Russia wants to produce in Russia, and which Turkey refuses to give a license to Moscow. I'm sure that Putin will return to that. The continuation of the grains shipments, that's another thing they can discuss. Trade. Definitely so. There is still bilateral Russian-Turkish trade. And maybe they will discuss some kind of, peace deal or peace negotiations, whatever you call it. Judging by the interview of a former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder a few days ago, it seems that Putin is looking for some kind of conversation. But whether it's serious or whether it's a smokescreen, it's really yet too hard to say.
Konstantin, we're going to come back to you in a few minutes because there's a Russian verdict I'd like to discuss with you. So stand by there for a moment. So the US is calling on the Kremlin to accept what it describes as a substantial offer to free the basketball player Brittany Griner. The White House has not disclosed details of that offer. Earlier, a Russian court sentenced Griner to 9 years in prison for drug possession and smuggling.
Brittany Griner entered the cramped courtroom and defendant's cell, hoping the sentencing judge would be lenient, that the judge would consider that Griner admitted her mistake, but had accidentally packed cannabis oil prescribed by her doctor and legal in the U.S.
Your Honor, I never meant to hurt anybody. I never meant to put in jeopardy the Russian population. I never meant to break any laws here. I made an honest mistake, and I hope that in your ruling that it doesn't end my life here.
Griner was stopped in mid-February after putting her bag through screening in a Moscow airport. Customs officials searched her bags, and she was eventually detained. She was on her way to join the Russian club she played for after the WNBA season in the United States. Griner is considered one of the top basketball talents in the world. Her 206-centimeter stature, 6 foot 9 inches, helps her dominate pro basketball, and she's helped win 2 Olympic gold medals for the U.S. In court, she held up a picture of her team in Russia, after several teammates had served as character witnesses for her. But she knows Russia and the U.S. are now on opposite sides of a global conflict.
I know everybody keeps talking about political pawn and politics, but I hope that that is far from this courtroom.
In a quick decision, the court showed it was unmoved by Griner's call for leniency. She was sentenced to 9 years, 1 less than the 10-year maximum.
We feel disappointment. You know, when we saw Brittany, I think it was Tuesday, and we told her, see you on Thursday, and she said, see you on Doomsday. So looks like she was right.
I love my family.
As she was led away, words of love for her family, but her future may well rest with diplomats for 2 countries barely speaking to each other.
Right, well, DW's Russia analyst Konstantin Eggert is still with me. Konstantin, a tough sentence for Griner, but the US has been pushing for a prisoner swap. So how likely is it that Griner will complete those 9 years in prison?
I think it is unlikely that she'll spend 9 years in prison. And it is also highly likely that some kind of negotiation will be concluded fairly soon about her fate and the fate of at least another American, Paul Whelan, a former U.S. Army, U.S. Marines, rather, serviceman who's been jailed in Russia, too, on alleged espionage charges. I think that Putin does want a deal, but he wants a deal that will secure the release of Viktor Bout, sometimes called the Merchant of Death. A pilot who was jailed in the U.S. For arms smuggling and illegal arms trade. And he's become a kind of cause célèbre in Russia, a symbol of Americans trampling on the Russians' right. And I suppose that Putin would like to get him back. We heard about that from time to time from Russian diplomats and actually from American diplomats too. And I think that maybe the future of Griner revolves around the future of Viktor Bout in American jail. I suspect it's going to be some kind of swap. Also, to add one more thing, it's not really a great PR for Putin to keep a global basketball star in jail. He knows it. It doesn't work very well. And I think that there's going to be some kind of deal.
Thank you, Konstantin. DW's Russia analyst Konstantin Eggert.